Hello guys, how you doing? If you follow international news, you know that right now we have two major wars taking place in the world. One between Russia and Ukraine, and the other one between Israel and Hamas, right? In the Gaza Strip. Is there a possibility of a belly conflict under the line of equator as well, here in South America? And does that involve Brazil as well? We're gonna talk about that right after the intro, so don't go anywhere. You have always sent me messages and asked me if there are $35,000 apartments or studios in Brazil. Well, I have to say Lavi has a new project called Novo here in the west side of the city, close to the Barra Funda subway station. They cost $35,500. Are you interested? Send me a direct message on this account on Instagram and I'm going to explain you everything. You can't miss this opportunity. It's your opportunity to invest in Brazil. $35,500 apartment, US dollars, okay? And I'll see you soon. Hello guys, how you all doing? If this is your first time watching a video here on the channel, my name is Mark Saint, and the purpose of this channel is to talk about everything that concerns Brazil using the English language. So here you don't need subtitles. Therefore, the name of the channel, right? Brazil Unsubtitled. Also guys, if this is your first time, make sure you click on the subscribe button. Help us grow. This is the purpose of being here, to grow and to reach more people. Make sure you also click on the like button if you like the content, and check the communities. We have 3 categories of members here on the communities of YouTube and also on Patreon. If you want to support us even more with a small quantity, go visit the products that we have to offer. Also, I have this Instagram account that belongs to the channel, and I have this one that talks about Brazilian Portuguese. If you want to learn Brazilian Portuguese, I also have a course. And I help you people find properties in Brazil. If you want to invest in the country, buy an apartment, I'm also the right man for you to talk to. Send me a direct message on this profile. So let's talk about what's going on in South America. Something I said at the beginning, a conflict, a belly conflict in South America, war, is that for sure, Mark? Let me tell you what's going on. Argentina is borders with Guyana, okay? The Dutch Guyana. This used to belong to the Dutch in the past, and then the British had a settlement with the Dutch, and they got this territory. But when they did, according to history, to some of the places that I consulted, some people say that this part, half of the Guyanese territory, belonged to Venezuela. At least that's what the Venezuelans say. So this is the region of Essequibo. Essequibo is rich in oil, in petroleum, and also, some people say, gold, okay? So when the British found out that the area had a lot of gold, they called a guy, I even checked the Department of State of the United States, take a look, Robert Schomburg, and they called this guy to define the boundary, the western boundary of the Venezuelan territory, and that's what he did. When he did, according to some sources, he incorporated this area to the Guyanese territory, and the Venezuelans said this belonged to us. So during many years, decades, the Venezuelans have requested the United States help to find a resolution to this conflict, but they were never successful. The United States always stood on the sidelines on the conflict, and the Venezuelans could never solve the problem. So more recently, President Maduro, the president of Venezuela, started making some movements towards a conflict against the Guyanese to take this territory back, according to them, right? So they even made a referendum, guys. They made a referendum to ask the Venezuelan people what they should do, what their opinion were over whether or not they should take this territory back. And more than 89% of the Venezuelans agreed that this was the best path. So guys, the interesting thing is that a couple of days later, President Maduro showed a map, or a new map of Venezuela that also incorporated, that already incorporated the Essequibo region, the part that today is in the possession of Guyana. So the new map showed how Venezuela would look like after they took over this territory. So, of course, the president of Guyana, and his name is Irfan Ali, didn't like anything about that. So he consulted the United Nations, he called them for a resolution, and even the United States got involved this time around and started making military exercises over the territory of Essequibo, Guyana, to show power, to show the Venezuelans they were making a mistake by threatening Guyana, militarily speaking. So that is so complicated that also involves Brazil, and I'm going to explain you why. Brazil has been sending more and more weapons to the territory of Roraima. And why is that happening if they're not involved with the conflict? Actually, take a look. The region of Essequibo, this area that you see here, that is more than 50% of the territory of Guyana, right? Most of it is composed of forests. So according to some military strategists I have read this morning, an invasion here would be very hard, especially because how can you pass tanks through forest areas? It's basically impossible. Even for soldiers, infantry who invade, it's complicated because it's a forest, right? It's a very irregular terrain we're talking about. So the solution would be to go through the Brazilian territory of Roraima, this area, and access this part of Essequibo that is much more plausible. So guys, for you to invade this territory, you're gonna have to create a conflict with Brazil. And that's the problem. So Brazil, this morning, I saw on Estadão, the most important newspaper in São Paulo, and I believe one of the most important in Brazil, says that the army sends dozens of missiles for the defense of Roraima against armored threat. So, because Venezuela could pass their tanks and their weapons in the Brazilian territory, Brazil, of course, is sending weapons and soldiers to this area, right? That's a very complicated thing. But it's important to say that 3 days ago, there was another report that said that Nicolás Maduro, the president of Venezuela, got together with President Ali from Guyana, and they agreed on solving or on sorting things out through diplomacy. They promised not to go into a belly conflict. So then you say, okay, Mark, so what is the concern? Well, we're talking about Nicolás Maduro, right? So we can never believe everything he says. We can never take everything as granted. Of course, this is a very important step towards the maintenance of peace in the region. It's in nobody's interest to have a war in South America. We are already dealing with a war in Russia, as I said, versus Ukraine. We're dealing with a war in Israel versus Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Why do we need another war in South America? That tends to be a Pacific continent. So no, it's in nobody's interest that that happens. Of course, Brazil is trying to solve this diplomatically. Brazil is concerned about the development of the situation under the line of equator. And Brazil doesn't want a conflict at its borders, right? It's in nobody's interest. So for the problem to escalate, it's very easy, right? So I think if you ask me, I think the Venezuelan president is just trying to cover internal problems. This I learned from college. I don't know if I told you guys, I have a degree in international relations, and something we learned at college is that sometimes countries, they will find a foreign enemy in order to cover their problems internally speaking. So that happened with Argentina many years ago. When they had internal problems, they ended up picking a fight with Great Britain. Yeah, you heard that right, Great Britain. And the conflict was called the Falkland Island War, or Guerra das Malvinas. Malvinas are some islands that the Argentinians call as their territory. They call that Malvinas, and the British say it belongs to them. It's called Falkland. So they had many internal problems, and they used the conflict to put all the Argentinian population against the British and to defend the government. So it's a common mechanism that some countries adopt in the international system. They blame someone else, and they drive the attention of the population to that specific enemy, thus making the population forget all the problems that their mandate have created or have been unable to deal with. So that's what I think. I just think Maduro is bluffing. He's not gonna invade the territory, right? I don't think that's possible. I also want to say that they don't want the United States getting involved in this conflict, right? Especially because Venezuela is aligned with Russia, and that would create some trouble that is really not necessary. But it's just my opinion. What do you guys think of it? If you think I'm crazy, you think it's possible that there's going to be a conflict, write a comment right here. I'm going to read everything you write. And thank you so much. I just want to say that this evening at 6:00 p.m., we're going to have a live. Okay, I just want to be there to celebrate the year of 2023 with you guys, your support for the channel, and everything good that has been happening to us this year. So be there. You can ask me anything. 6:00 p.m. Brazil time, I'll be here. I'm going to be talking to you and taking your questions about the many things that you guys might want to ask, okay? Thank you so much. Make sure you click on the like button, you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.